Growing up, I always thought that going to Europe was for rich people. We didn't have family vacations. People have often asked me if this was my dream to move to Germany. I laugh because it was never remotely on my radar. A thought so wildly unattainable that it never even crossed my mind. And yet here I was, despite the overwhelming odds, trying to create a new life of my own. Howdy und servus, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of The Pod Abroad. And happy New Year! My name is Paulina de los Santos, and for some context, I'm an American who has been living in Munich, Germany, the last almost 10 years, the last 9.5, I will say. And on this podcast, I share insights about my life and my lived experiences as an American living here in Germany. And I also have conversations with my many international friends who are also based here in Munich, and they are able to share their cultural differences and lived experiences as well. So if any of that interests you, then please consider commenting, liking, subscribing, following wherever you are listening from. And I'm super happy that you're here today. Today, I'm speaking all about money and the concept of money and moving abroad. And I wanted to just kind of preface this in saying I do not come from generational wealth. And I moved to Germany in 2016 for a master's program at the Technical University of Munich. I've also mentioned that in a few videos. I can also link them here if you're interested in my insight about what it was like studying here. But that is the reason why I came initially 9 years ago. And I stayed because I honestly just couldn't imagine going back when I was graduating. I really loved the life that I had built in those 3 years that it took me to finish my master's degree. And I was open to so many different new cultures, experiences, the language and life here in Germany. Everything kind of opened up for me. That's why I came here. But it was not easy. I think people maybe seeing me now, all these years later, might not initially assume that they might assume that that this might have just been handed to me. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I try to approach life in a very positive way. And I think often many times, like in my master's program and a few years ago in general, like I think people assume that when I say I'm from the US, that means that I come from money. And that's just not it. And I do understand because several people in my master's program and people that I had met, students, other international students along the way, came from other countries where overall, like the cost of living and salaries were significantly lower than here in Munich. And of course, conversion rates were then consequentially also not ideal. But it's very interesting when we just assume things of a nationality and think like, oh, the US is a developed nation, developed, and she must have money. And that wasn't the case necessarily. So just wanted to get into that today and just kind of be real and honest about how I saved up money to make it over here and kind of make my dreams a reality. I know that money in general is like a bit of a sensitive topic, but I'm happy to open up today and share this with you all in hopes of possibly inspiring someone and sharing my personal experience. If you are in a position right now where you're in the US or any other country and considering to move to Germany or within Europe in general, and maybe you're in a small hometown and people think you're crazy, I don't. I really don't. And I think maybe this can be a resource. I don't want to say like I can be an example because this is in no way, shape, or form, y'all, financial advice either. This is just my personal story. So, what can I say? It takes a lot. It takes a village to make your dreams come true. And I wanted to start off with a story that I wrote 3 years ago. At the time, I had been living in Germany over 6 years, and I was really in my writing groove, and I want to get back into writing this year in 2026. So I'll read that story now. When I moved, okay, y'all, I gotta start strong. I gotta start strong. Okay. When I moved from my home state of Texas to Germany in 2016, it was a labor of love. I had a one-way flight that scared the hell out of me, but the excitement weighed heavier than the risk. I was 21 years old and had never stepped foot in this new country, but was equipped with a why not attitude. I told you to fly and you flew, damn it, my mom told me with tears rolling down her face. Little did I know my flight would be canceled that day and I'd get to spend one last night with her. No need for a painful part two of the goodbye scenes the next day. I grew up in a household that struggled. As much as I wanted to hide that as a teenager, I am now fearless in acknowledging that. My mom tried her very best to keep us afloat as a single and disabled parent. Living off of monthly government paychecks and having 3 kids to feed never got easier. In addition, I was the only person in my family in good health. My 2 brothers and her had serious medical issues in a country with an unforgiving system, a system that feels like it wants to see you fail. There were endless nights of $5 Little Caesars pizza because it fed us all and was less expensive than groceries. There was the weekly trip to get a loan at our neighborhood pawn shop, this time because I needed supplies for the upcoming science fair. There was, yet again, our family car breaking down in the middle of a busy street. Didn't it know we couldn't afford to fix it? I'd see the pain in my mom's eyes. She was often tired, and so were we. I wouldn't let my home situation translate to my school life. At school, I could be anyone I wanted to be. My mom always told me, where you come from does not define where you can go. And so I tried my best to soar. In high school, academia and extracurriculars seemed to be the key to freedom one day. Financial freedom. I knew that the harder I worked, the better chances I had to break the cycle and eventually to be able to help my family. So I worked. I went on to Texas A&M University, a top one in the state. 2.5 years later, I graduated early with a bachelor's degree and $18,000 of debt. Chasing a dream of pursuing a master's degree without accumulating more debt, I was accepted to a program at the Technical University of Munich. I only had one immediate challenge. To get a student visa, you need to show that you have over 10,000 euro in a bank account. And holy shit, was this a mountain. After working 3 jobs for 8 months, I saved probably $6,000. Knowing I was in need, my younger brother took my small car and let me sell his that was higher valued. My grandparents purchased my first ever big suitcase. My dad paid for my last 2 months of rent. My uncles came together and bought me a new laptop. My friends were so excited for me, and my mother, as always, was my emotional support system. Growing up, I always thought that going to Europe was for rich people. We didn't have family vacations. People have often asked me if this was my dream, to move to Germany. I laugh because it was never remotely on my radar. A thought so wildly unattainable that it never even crossed my mind. And yet here I was, despite the overwhelming odds, trying to create a new life of my own. It wasn't easy maintaining financial independence throughout my master's program. While some of my friends had plenty of time to study, I was also working 20 hours a week to make ends meet. For my first 3 years in this country, I lived off of 900 euro a month. And that is something I will always be proud of. In 2019, I was offered my first full-time position here. One thing was certain, for the first time in my life, I could truly breathe. In this moment, I had made it. For the first time, I was living alone in a beautiful studio, complete with furniture that I handpicked. My anxiety subsided. I went and got braces. I'd walk into the grocery store and buy whatever I wanted. Could it get any better? A beautiful observation through this all, I had moments of sheer joy in my childhood as a university student and now in my work life. I've also experienced deep pains in all of these life slash financial phases as well. With that being said, I've come to have a deep appreciation for my current financial situation, for the privilege that it brings. Money helps. Money has enabled me to experience new things and help my loved ones. My name is Paulina de los Santos, and I am from Westlaco, Texas. I am proud of who I am and where I am from. Life abroad is an eternal roller coaster, but one that I am privileged and grateful to have experienced. Yeah, and that was the story. I don't know why I finished the last line to say to have experience, but it was I'm privileged and grateful to experience. It was present tense. And it is many years later, 3 years later, after writing this story, and I'm still living abroad, y'all. Still somehow made it happen. So this was written in, I think, November 2022. And at the time, like reflecting on what it took to get me here, um, was a beautiful thing. It's always nice to kind of go back and see how far one has come in general. When I first moved to Germany, I didn't know how it would turn out, but I was definitely a bit naive and curious. And I think, yeah, definitely excited. So, kind of all those emotions combined weighed heavier than the kind of anxiety behind it as well, and like the big question marks as well. I definitely knew that I had to try, and I was super motivated when I was 21. And you know what, like looking back, I just want to give her a hug and tell her like everything's going to be okay. Like I'm so proud of the 21-year-old Paulina who made the choice to kind of uproot her life. I'm 30 years old now. Um and the past Paulina made a choice that changed me forever and that I'm so grateful for. I also want to say that at the time, like when I first moved here at 21, I mean, younger, of course, than I am now, scared, but definitely hopeful. And I would say the same goes for today. And I wanted to like briefly touch on that and have a disclaimer that as of right now, it's January 1st, 2026. I am entering the new year looking for a new job. And I do not have a full-time job at the moment. I had to leave my former job as a marketing and communications manager and sustainability here in Munich. The company wasn't doing too well. I wasn't doing too well, and I knew that I had to further develop myself in between jobs. I have been volunteering the last 2 months at a senior center in my neighborhood, speaking German every day. And I think this time is very crucial for me to kind of develop and be able to reevaluate what I want from my career and my future here in Germany. And I think, yeah, the fact that I was also able to take a 6 week full-time German course that was Monday through Friday for 6 weeks, a B2 course. That was also very impactful, and kind of focusing on my language skills right now is something that I haven't been able to do in peace when I was working full time because I had been working the last 8 out of the 9 years of being here. So to have the privilege to be able to take this gap is something beautiful. At the same time, I will say choosing to leave one's job is something that I think within my culture and my financial upbringing sounds like fucking stupid. For lack of better words, y'all, I'm sorry, that sounds very crude. How can I say that more politically correct and just kind of respectful? It's ridiculous, right? It sounds crazy to just leave a job without having a new job, but I can't explain to you what the feeling was last year that really pulled me to doing this. Yeah, a few months after I left, the company that I worked for went down. That was also very telling about how I was feeling about the entire situation there, and my true drive and desire to want to be able to develop myself and focus on my language skills. So if anyone is German and listening to this, y'all can leave comments in German to me because, of course, I always read them and I think that's really helpful as well. But anyway, back on the topic of money, it was terrifying to choose to leave a job without having a new one. And on the outside, it seems irresponsible and very, very scary as well, coming from someone who didn't grow up with financial security in our household. Um, but it was something that I knew I needed to do. And I really want to have a positive outlook for 2026, whether that be, yeah, with money and opportunity. I think it's very, very important to be optimistic, and to do everything in my power to further develop my skills as a communicator and marketing professional, and yeah, and learn German to a better degree, and be more confident in speaking the other language. And my goal is to also be able to work in German. And I think I'm getting closer and closer to that goal every day. The seniors that I volunteer with understand me. And to be understood is a total win in my book. They don't know a Paulina at this senior center that speaks English. And for that, I'm very, very proud about how that's been going. Yeah. So all in all, I wanted to say a bit of word, like a few words of inspiration, and say like you can do this. If moving abroad is pulling at your heartstrings and like something that you really like think of nonstop and like it just is a recurring theme in your life, then do it. I think you can do it. It's not going to magically just be handed to you, natürlich, like of course. But it goes, yeah, it requires planning, sacrifice, asking for help, kind of falling forward and choosing discomfort over regret and just trying to just dive right in and follow your dreams. I think something magical about the new year is kind of like the hope, right? The hope that anything is possible and having that tinge of hope and inspiration for one's dreams and goals. So I'm here to tell you that I think that with the right planning and outlook on your dream, like anything is possible. I wanted to say that I don't think that me moving abroad happened because I was incredibly special or lucky. But I think a big part of it happened because I was willing to be uncomfortable for a long time as well. And I knew that it's not always going to be romantic and luxurious and everything of the sort. I also wrote here in my little note saying that choosing a life of uncertainty and discomfort sounds like it's a life for masochists, but it's definitely something that is rewarding as well. Which led me to the thought of something that my friend Katie has told me. We have an episode also with Katie if you're interested. I'll link it here. But she once described to me the different types of fun, and she described to me type 2 fun, um, which, yeah, type 2 fun describes activities that are miserable, difficult, or even painful while you're doing them, but become incredibly rewarding, epic, and fun in retrospect, often building character and creating great stories. Like a brutal mountain climb or a marathon that test your limits. That was from Google, I'm pretty sure. So that's a definition of type 2 fun. And I feel like that's totally choosing to live life abroad, choosing the road less taken, like choosing the harder path is type 2 fun. And for me, in the end, like it was totally worth it. I wanted to now go into a bit of like what making it happen actually looked like and kind of the sacrifices that I had to sacrifices sound so dramatic, y'all. People go through much worse, but the little things that I had to go through to make it possible financially to live here in Germany. So it all kind of started with a summer internship. I moved to Germany in 2016, but my first ever summer in Europe was in 2015. and I had an internship in Poland. I got accepted for the internship in Poland, and I was so incredibly excited. And I remember thinking, like, how the hell am I going to afford to go there? So what I did at the time was sign up for 2 summer courses at my university so that I could be offered student loans. And with that student loan money, I was able to finance my summer experience of interning in Poland. Um, and you know what? Yeah, I completely support Past Paulina's decision of taking out that loan to finance that summer. But because of that, I met a friend, Julius, at the time, who was from Dresden, and he was the one who told me, Paulina, you should study in Germany if you complain so much about how expensive university is in the US. And that just changed my life forever. So financially, it started with taking out loans or a loan for that summer internship in 2015. Then I was incredibly inspired. I knew, like, gosh, like, I wanna move to Germany, I guess. Actually, at the time, like, my dream was to move to Hawaii to study environmental management, because I studied in Munich, sustainable resource management. But the dream was Hawaii. I got accepted to Hawaii, and I was just so incredibly excited. That was my number one choice. And then I didn't get proper scholarship offers. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm not going to pay 80 grand for a master's degree for out of state tuition. I guess I'm moving to Germany. And I found out that I was moving to Germany, I swear, like 3, 4 months before I was to move, which is crazy. But that entire year, I had been saving very, very diligently for something because I knew I wanted to start a master's program. I just didn't know where I would end up. So that year in 2016, before I moved to Germany, I personally tracked every single penny that I was making and spending. I worked 3 jobs temporarily through 8 months of that year. So I had a full-time job at the time, full-time temp job in a laboratory in San Antonio, Texas. I was tutoring several times a week in the evening. I had just graduated with my bachelor's degree and was able to tutor in math and in English. And then on the weekends, I was dog sitting. I lived with my grandparents at the time for free rent, and also helped support them with any little thing that they needed. So the fact that I could stay with them and not have to pay rent obviously was an incredible advantage and privilege that not everyone has. And I recognize that. Um, I'm not saying that I did this all on my own. I know I did not. So it really takes a village. And just reflecting now, the first day of my full-time job that year, um, I went in and, like, I remember I got home and it was my first full day. I was so, like, yeah, I don't know, excited, happy. I was like, yeah, like, I'm gonna work and I'm saving up, but I don't know for what yet or where I'm going. And I go home to my grandparents' home and I go to the backyard and my grandpa had fallen and literally had like blood dripping on his head and he was on the floor. And I remember being terrified and I was just like, oh my gosh, what happened? And he like fell off some little step ladder and I had to take him to the Veterans Hospital on the Air Force Base in San Antonio. And they gave him some scans and everything. And we were there till like past midnight. And I had work the next day as well. So yeah, there was a lot going on through that time. And in the end, he was okay. And my grandpa's still alive right now. He's 94 years old. Um, Shout out. His name is Miguel de los Santos, an incredible man. But it was a very busy time in my life and very tumultuous. Like it was just a little crazy, for sure. But another thing, like in a way, another way that I was supported is that I got a laptop from my uncles, and I do have to say, like, I give credit to my mother for initiating this. Um, she wasn't in a financial situation to be assisting me in the move, and with all of her heart and love, she sent a text out. I remember to her 5 brothers in their family chat and asked if they were willing to pitch in to help support me and help me purchase a new laptop for my master's program. And I did so. And I used that laptop throughout my entire program. That's the laptop that I wrote my master's thesis on. And yeah, I'm just so, so, so very grateful for all of those little things. When I first got to Munich, my Uncle Joe sent me money to buy my first coat and a pair of boots. And I remember thinking at the time, like, maybe I should get something kind of, um, yeah, multi that has like multi-purpose. And I ended up buying my first pair of hiking boots because I was like, okay, a pair of hiking boots I can go hiking in, and I can also use for snow in the city as well. Instead of it just being like a fashionable snow boot. It doesn't even snow that much in Munich, but to this day, I still use those boots, and I think of my uncle when I, yeah, wear that jacket or use those boots. And it's 9 years later, y'all. So it was truly the little things. And I was so, so grateful. I mean, as a student, you're kind of watching every euro or dollar that you're spending. So that was, yeah, incredible. And another thing that I had to do to come over here to Germany was get rid of most of my personal belongings and clothing. I came here with only two 50-pound bags, which is about 25 kilos. And the rest, I didn't want to burden my mom and leave a lot of things behind. So I just gave away clothing to friends and donated some and just gave away everything. And that was really, really scary because I had no intentions on staying here like for the rest of my life, whatever that meant. But something just told me like, if I'm gonna leave for 2 years, like you gotta go all out and like you gotta start with a fresh, clean slate. And that is exactly what I did. When I lived here, I went to the Technical University of Munich, but I lived in Freising, which is a small neighboring city north of Munich. And Freising has definitely probably like a lower cost of living than Munich itself, though it's not like significant. But I moved into a student dorm that was for the first 6 months temporarily. And then I finally got like an actual dorm spot under my name, which was really impressive. I'll never forget that. That was also stressful. I was on a waiting list for a dorm. So the first 6 months, like I was so lucky that I got to sublease a dorm and I had a roommate in Freising. And I remember, I think I was at the last week of that sublease and I hadn't found a new place to live yet when I get a message from the student organization saying like, you got a spot in the dorm and you can move in 3 days. The stress, y'all. I was like, ugh, but the relief. I was so excited. And I stayed in a dorm in Freising here in Bayern in Germany. It was called Vonheim 1 and it was across the library in Freising. I lived there for 2 years. And there were 18 guys on my floor. I shared the restrooms and the showers with them. They were not community showers. I'm just saying, like, there was like different shower rooms, each with one shower in it. But a guy would come out and I'd go in. We shared, yeah, like I said, the restroom, the kitchen as well. There was one kitchen. I was the only girl on that floor. It was quite an experience, I will have to say. Though, and also like my rent was, I believe, something crazy like 280 or 300 euro a month. That's incredible. So at that price, I couldn't complain too much. My room was about 10 square meters. I don't know what that is in square feet. Look at me, like I'm so German. It's very small, y'all. It's very, very small. My younger brother came to visit me. I helped, like I remember like I got his flight somehow because I had saved my little money, got a good flight for him to come visit, and he was the first family member to come visit Kiko. And I remember like if he's gonna listen to this, like he'll know that I got like an extra mattress in some utility closet in my dorm and we put it down on the floor, and like my room was only big enough to have two single mattresses. Like I could touch wall to wall with my leg in my hand. That's how small it was. And We'd go to sleep and he'd sleep on his little mattress on the ground and I was on my bed. And then every morning that he was there and we were there, he was there for 2 weeks, we would pick up the mattress because there was no floor space, like at all. We couldn't move. Like the little extra mattress took up the entire floor space that I had. Nevertheless, it was an experience and I was um very down, very, very down for the experience and kind of open to it. What else can I say? I mean, the guys that lived there, I think at the time I was 21, 22 years old, and they were all like 18 studying brewery. I think Weinstefan is like one of the only 4-year degrees in brewery within Germany. And they would make their own brews and kind of get drunk during the week and say it was for the sake of science and their class. And damn, y'all, it was a whole experience, but I have no regrets. It was a fun time. It was definitely a fun time, and a lot of the guys were very, very nice and respectful as well. Um, During that time, I also budgeted my savings for groceries every single week, and this meant not eating out on every invite. As a student, I remember so many people had birthdays and like they wanted to go out to all these restaurants, and I simply could not afford to be eating out all the time. But I remember I'd eat before, then I'd go and maybe like get one drink and just be like present with my friends at the time. But one thing for certain is that I lived within my means. If I didn't have the money for something, that was that. And I would wait until I did. I didn't acquire any further debt during that time. And that was just something that I was very proud of. And something that is not so American. Um, so I would like to think that, yeah, that time taught me so much about myself and about spending money. And I think I'm grateful for sure for that. All in all, I think whether it's financial issues that you're concerned about or cultural, like I think you should just go for it and take the plunge and find out as you go. I think it's very, very important. Like, don't be ignorant and just like come to the country with negative dollars to your name. And I mean, that can't be possible in a legal sense because visas often require you to have a certain amount of money for a very valid reason. Like, now looking back, I completely understand why. Like, Germany wants us to be productive members of society. They do not want people to like kind of come here and like bum it out. Valid, very fair. Um, yeah, having that, raising that 10,000 euro, which at the time I think was like 12,000 US dollars to come here was, it felt like a mountain. I somehow made it happen with my family and with saving and everything, but I made it work and I made that money scream somehow and everything fell into place. Um, I want to now go into a little part and say, if you are listening right now and feeling that pull, if you're just really constantly thinking about leaving and the thoughts are ever consuming and won't let you ease up on it, um, fear doesn't mean no. Like, if you are feeling fearful and kind of scared about it, um, I think that is kind of natural, right? Like, these are very, very natural emotions when it comes to making a big life change. And that fear often means that it's something that matters. Be smart about it. I'm not here to like, I'm not giving like professional financial advice. I'm just sharing my story. But do what you can to save what you need and to meet visa requirements. And I want to kind of reflect and say that one kind of cheesy quote that I thoroughly believe in is that if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. So a little bit of fear, a little bit of scare in you, I think is kind of natural and exciting as well. Um, with that being said, I want to say also that your dreams don't have to be American big, like owning a home or making millions. Maybe the new American dream is to leave and to find peace in the madness of the world because other countries are crazy too. So, I mean, yeah, like I said with the masochist comment earlier, like choosing to live abroad and to go through some struggles is not like for the weak of heart. Um, is that the saying? The faint of heart? But it's worth it. It's worth it for the people who kind of take that risk as well. I do not think that you need generational wealth to move abroad, but you do need savings, and that translated for me as time, effort, and resilience, and definitely a belief in yourself when maybe nobody else sees it. Like I said earlier, it could be that maybe you're like me and you're from a small town, and that maybe your friends and family think that you're crazy, but I don't. I think it's something very hard to move abroad, but it's impossible. Like it is possible. Oh, y'all, that was not a Freudian slip, I promise. It's possible for sure. Make it happen. It's 2026, y'all. Anything is possible when you set your mind to it. And I thoroughly believe that driven people who are relentless in their pursuit of their dreams are rewarded, y'all. Like when someone is just so incredibly driven and like they have their eyes on the prize and they know what they want and like they won't take no for an answer, like you adjust your life, you adjust your means and like your cost of living to feed into that goal and to make it a reality. And that's something that's so inspiring. And I've seen a TikTok that said, what if you spiraled into the best case scenarios? That oftentimes our brains want to just spiral into worst case. Valid as well. We want to make sure that we have our plan A, plan B, plan C. But you know what? Like, what if we also spiral into best case scenarios? What if all of our dreams actually do come true when we are relentless in the pursuit of them? You know? You know what I mean? I want to also say that even if this hadn't worked out, I still would have been very, very proud of myself for trying. And maybe living abroad isn't for everyone. I know there are many people who move abroad and maybe not, they end up not finding their people, their tribe, their community, their village. And that's okay as well. It's hard. It's not for everyone, and not everyone finds joy in it or finds their people. That's valid too. But at least knowing that you have kind of satisfied that little itch that you had and like not living a life with what ifs, I think is incredibly profound for sure. Um, yeah. I think like looking at life right now is knowing that it's so cheesy as well that they call it the present because every day is a gift. Y'all, there are so many people out there that are unable to chase their dreams for various reasons. So, and in no ways like want to make this episode from a point of complete ignorance. Like I know not everyone has the financial means to be saving, period. I'm very, very acutely aware of that. But for those who are capable to, where it is a possible option, then why not try? Like, why not try? We only have one life. And I think many of the people who are not able to do so would wish that they could take these risks. So if you are in a position where you are able to do so, why not? Just try. And that I wanted to leave off saying, if you needed a sign to move abroad in 2026, take this as your sign. Happy New Year, y'all. Let's get it. I think it's going to be a fabulous new one. And if you have any questions about my life or just like need any, I don't know, tips or advice, then leave a comment down below or shoot me an email and I would love to get in touch. That is going to be it for this episode. Thank you for making it to the end, and until next week. Thanks a lot, y'all. The Pod Abroad's video, audio, and music is produced and edited by Tim Teherne. Make sure to give us a follow and leave a comment if you like this episode.